Hello and welcome to another Green Thumb Lecture Series. My name is John Schaefer and I'm with the Harris County Public Library. Joining me today will be a member of the Harris County Master Gardeners Association for a very special presentation and discussion. Just a few reminders here. We are here every Tuesday, the third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. Let me go ahead and stop this banner here. We have started. Okay, today's topic is seed saving. Very excited about that and our presenter. But before I introduce our presenter, I just want to go over a couple things real quick. One is we love questions. So please keep those questions coming as we're going in. Type them into Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're viewing this. And we will not only have some master gardeners monitoring the chat in real time and answering some of those questions online as we go. We're also going to, at the end of the program, talk to our presenter, and I'll relay all those questions, and we will ask and get a live response from our presenter as well. So please ask as many questions as you like all along the way, and we will get to them. Just type them in as we go. Also, want to remind everybody that we will be back again next month on July 16th. Our program will be Fall's Best Vegetable Gardening. And I know it's hard to imagine fall right now because it's it's a little warm outside right now, but it is coming up as we know it will. So today, of course, we are talking about seed saving, and I'm very excited to introduce our presenter. Linda Purse has been a master gardener for over a decade. Throughout that time, she has focused on community outreach, especially with their children's programs. She's pleased to share her interest in working with children with a team of master gardeners whose commitment and creativity contributed to the successful programs offered over the years. So please welcome with me Linda. Hi, Linda. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, and welcome to everyone. I'm pleased to be here.
It's good to have you here. I want to know all about seed saving because I don't know anything about seed saving other than maybe I know I've planted some seeds at one point in my gardening career, and then they wound up in the freezer of some port. And then like a few years later, I was like, what are these doing here? Oh yeah, I had some extra seeds, and so I think they're still in the freezer. So maybe you can tell me if they're going to be any good or not. We'll go over all that. But anyway, let's get started. I know you have a great presentation ahead of us. So please, and just let me know if you need anything along the way, but I will let you get started.
Okay, seed saving is a type of propagation, of course, and it's a way to propagate plants. We propagate plants that we want more of, maybe because they grow well in our area, or we particularly like the color, or maybe we want to share plants with other people. And seed saving is just one of several ways that we can propagate a plant. With seed saving, we are taking advantage of a part of the plant's life cycle before a plant dies off, if it's an annual, or before it goes dormant, if it's a perennial. The plant will produce seeds. Now, the seeds enable the plant to continue to exist each year, year after year, and it provides for us seeds that we can collect and grow for our own enjoyment. Now, typically we save seeds with the intention of to plant them or to share them with others. And this can be informal sharing, or there are also from time to time seed sharing gatherings. And it's a chance to meet other people who are interested in seeds and to share seeds and to exchange knowledge and information and maybe get to know some new people. We can have the next slide now. Program, and we reach out into the community with programs like Green Thumb and a lot of others. And you'll often find us at parks, different events going on in parks or schools or community centers. And we do respond to invitations to come and do programs. We try to work out something that is consistent with what a group might be needing. Next slide. Okay, these are but a few of a huge variety of seeds. These are seeds that I've collected over time. And some seeds are easy to collect in that they grow obviously on the face of the flower, and others are inside of the fruit or vegetable that we're trying to grow, or else they grow in pods, and they're a little harder to judge the ripeness of and the time to collect them, but I'll be talking about that later. But what all these seeds have in common, even the teeny tiny little ones up there, is that inside of them they contain an embryo that's protected by a seed coat and is nurtured by a food source. So a seed has those three components. They may have others as well, but they always have those three. I want to say at this point, and before we get into a lot of questions, that when you're collecting seeds, you need to read about the seeds. Get someone to help you identify what that plant is, and read about the plant and its needs, and read about the seed and its needs, because a lot of the things that we'll talk about later, you need to know the name of the plant in order to know what to do about it. Next slide is fine. Now, advantages and disadvantages of seed propagation. Now, most of these are true whether you're growing seeds that you purchased at the big box store, hardware store, wherever you might buy seeds. But some of them are specific issues or disadvantages with when you're saving seeds. Seeds in general are cheap and easy. You can buy a packet that has more seeds, in my case, than I ever use up. I usually end up trying to save them or give them away. Most seeds are going to store well, and we'll talk about storage. Now, the commercial seeds are produced with high standards, and you've got a lot of choices. What I find when I purchase seeds is that they really do pretty much do what the picture on the front and what the information on the back says they're going to do. So I think commercial seeds, we don't have to save our own seeds to get good seeds. There are a lot of seeds out there. If we decide we don't want to go through the steps of saving them, there are a lot of good seeds out there that you can buy. Now, with seeds that we save, and this can be an advantage or a disadvantage, you've got a possibility for variability because of the fertilization process. Now, this has to do with the pollen and the mixture of the pollen with the egg, and you never know which, if pollen from a purple plant is going to be fertilized by a different colored plant. So you do get more variation if you're saving the seeds yourself. There's a longer time to maturity, and you need to plan ahead for planting time and care of the seedlings. Now, what this means is if you're going to start some seedlings, you don't want to start them at the time when you know you're not going to be paying any attention to them, because once a seedling absorbs moisture and the embryo germinates, you don't want that drying out, because the plant, it won't continue to grow and you'll lose the plant. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll be covering 4 basic areas of seed saving, starting off with why do you save, how are seeds created, and how does this impact the seeds themselves, and then the steps in collecting, processing, and storing. And in the end, I'm going to mention some dormancy issues, just because they do apply to some seeds that we collect as well as seeds that we purchase. Next slide. Okay, seed saving, why or why not? Well, as we've already said, they're free and available. You can share them with others. Gives you a chance to reserve varieties for that are good for your growing conditions. Collecting, processing, and storing are easy, but they are going to require some effort and timing on your part. Then the collected seeds also, and I mentioned this in the last slide, may not produce plants with the same characteristics as the parent plant. This is because of the lineage of plants, and and the plants that grow from the seeds. And just like we may not always look like our brothers and sisters, even though we have the same parent, seeds collected from the same plant may not all look the same. The collected seeds are more likely to have variability than the commercially produced seeds. They control the fertilization process pretty carefully in commercial seeds. Also, collecting seeds may or may not be the choice for some plants, but particularly if you're not interested in putting the time into it, just buy a pack of seeds. They're not expensive at all, and they're very available. The next slide. Okay, it's the fertilization process that creates the uncertainty of what the seeds the type of flower that the seeds you collect are going to produce. The seeds, we probably know this, they're formed from the genetic material from the female part of the flower. The egg is fertilized by the genetic material from the male part of the flower, or pollen. And this results in offspring or seeds that have the potential for variability. Now, variability is more likely to occur in a hybrid than an heirloom plant. Anytime you see a plant or a packet of seeds that says new and improved, deeper colors, more resiliency, something like that, you can figure it's a hybrid, because the companies that produce these seeds are trying to get qualities into that seed that are agreeable and that people are looking for. So usually messages like that are a giveaway that it's a hybrid seed. The fertilization process is why we worry so much about bees and butterflies and other pollinators, birds, and their health, and making sure that we can attract them, because they are the ones that work to pollinate our plants. They spread the pollen around the garden, and it finds its way onto an egg, and you've got a pollinated plant that can start to grow. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we'll go through 3 steps, simple steps. Collecting the seeds when they're ripened. You want to do that. Process the seeds and storing the seeds. That was an easy one. Next slide. Okay. Collect seeds when ripe. You want to look for healthy plants to collect from. Propagating a diseased plant is not going to make the plant healthy. You're just more likely to produce another unhealthy plant. Now, if it's just a matter of the plant needs some watering to plump it up a little bit before you collect the seeds, certainly go ahead and do that. But you want to identify plants that are healthy to collect seeds from. And then the next step is you need to determine where within the blossom the seeds come from. Now, sometimes you can't miss them. They're right on the face of the flower. Other times they're inside of fruit or vegetable. And of course, many times they're in pods that hang down. I'll have pictures of all of these. So what you want to do from time to time is check on the ripening of the seeds. And if the seeds are on the outside, it's easy. They're drying up. They're starting to fall off the plant, so it's time to start collecting them. However, if they're inside, you look for a change in the color or the drying or the softening of a fruit, and that will tell you that probably the seeds are ripe. Now, if the seeds are on the outside, like with marigolds, cosmos, some of those, you may want to bag the seeds before the blossom before you take them off, so that you're not losing a lot of the seeds that you're wanting to collect. That's optional, though. If you're collecting seeds that there are a lot of being produced, you don't have to worry about this so much. But if they're kind of scarce seeds, you might want to do some bagging. Now, you need to use something like cheesecloth to wrap around the seed pod or the blossom, so that air continues to circulate. And then when they're ripe, you remove the blossom, and if the seeds drop easily, you can go ahead and include part of the stem. Then you place these in a bowl and paper and take them to wherever you're going to go on to the next step. Next slide. Okay, these are some examples of identifying plants for collection. I had to go to an extreme of writing a note on this yellow eggplant because it was in a community garden, and people had the tendency to, if they saw something that they liked in someone else's garden, they kind of think, well, she's got lots of those, so why don't I just grab that? She won't notice. Well, I wanted to save that particular eggplant, so I put a note on it, and in fact, no one picked it. But that's a green eggplant, and I wanted to collect seeds from it because that was the easiest way to propagate that particular plant. Next slide. Okay, you want to determine where the seeds are forming and keep an eye on that. The plant on the left, you see, does my cursor work? I don't know if my cursor is working on this or not, but
no, actually, it would need to be
that's okay. Don't worry about it. No, it doesn't matter. The seeds form on the outside of a lot of the flowers, and it's obvious when they're drying out. So you keep an eye on them and collect them when they're dried out. Now, on the other hand, the other picture is of a roselle or a Jamaican sorrel plant, both names, and you can see 3 pods, the little red, the large red, little red, large red, however, dots there, and they have seeds in them. And you can notice on the lowest one, the lowest blossom particularly, that pod is getting larger, and eventually the petals, of course, just dry off and fall off, and then you collect the pods. Next slide. Also, seeds form in pods, long, thin pods like green beans. I'm sure most of you have seen these seeds. This happens to be a blue pea vine seed, and you can see, and the pod is over to the side. And it looks like there's an insect up there on that. I didn't notice it at the time. But anyway, on the right is a picture of a plant that was growing up the wall of my neighbor's garage. And the little yellow dots are seed pods. I didn't collect them because I didn't know anything about the plant. And by the way, this reminds me again to mention, find out about the plants that you want to collect. And I asked the person what it was. She had no idea. And I figured I got lots of plants to worry about, so I didn't take those. Okay, next slide. Okay, these are more examples of pods. This is an Esperanza pod. And my sister was growing this really nice Esperanza, and so I decided to collect some seeds from it. And the picture on the left in my hand is the seed pod as it was at the time I first decided I wanted to collect. And over about a 3-week period, I kept an eye on it. And again, this period of time varies from plant to plant, but over the pod popped open, and you can see the seeds inside of it. Now, that's one reason for wrapping a pod. It opened at a time when I wasn't there. They could have fallen out on the ground and I would have lost them, but I knew there were a lot of pods there, but also I know I've collected Esperanza pods before, and the seeds really nest themselves in a little netting right inside of the seed pod, so you don't usually lose them. The pods on the other side, this is the sorrel, or the Jamaican sorrel, or roselle, and you see that the seed pods are divided into 4 or 5 different chambers, and each one has 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds in it, and it's easy to get them out. So, one of these seed pods goes a long ways toward collecting seeds. So that's, and they crack open on their own, and if you don't pull them off, again, the seeds are going to fall onto the ground, and maybe you'll get some surprises the next spring. You'll have some small roselle bushes coming up. Next slide. Okay, these are the on the left are the easy seeds to collect. That happens to be a cosmos, and it's very similar to marigolds. If you look at that picture, you can see different stages of seed development. On the ground, there are some that are very, very ripe and have already fallen. The dark spots are seeds that have dried out. And then if you look, there are even a few that there's still some blossom and seeds forming there. So you can go back to these plants over time because they're going to ripen over time. The seeds ripen over time. Now this picture on the right is so that I can remind you that citrus fruit don't need to have their seeds dried, because we will be talking about drying out seeds if they're not completely dried, but you don't have to do that with citrus seeds. But it's also to remind me something about that goes back to the fertilization process. You sometimes will get a vegetable at the grocery store or fruit at the grocery store. You think, this is perfect, this is wonderful, with a nice plump tomato or a nice juicy sweet orange. And you think, I'm going to save these seeds and I'm going to grow more of these. Well, probably the growers used hybrid seeds, meaning that there are certain characteristics that growers need in their crops to make a living at it. And these are like, you have a large number maturing at the same time so that you have a shipment to market. You want them to last long on the shelf. You want them to have good colors. And those don't always occur, and they don't always matter. But for growers, they do pay attention to having plants that are going to be attractive, and that typically involves using hybrid seeds, creating hybrids. Okay, next slide. Okay, dry processing seeds is the easiest. These happen to be basil seeds. You just cut them off and let them dry a little longer and bag them up. But most seeds are dry processing if they grow on the outside of the plant. It's the ones that grow in pulp on the inside of a fruit or vegetable that needs additional drying. But even with these seeds, you should probably let them dry for just another day or 2, 3 days, 4 days in a warm place, just to make sure the moisture is out of them, because you don't want them rotting or forming mold, which is what's going to happen if you pack away damp seeds, moist seeds for storage. So with dry seeds, you just usually shake the pods and they release the seeds. Then you need to separate the seed from the shaft before you store it. Shaft being the stems and the dried leaves and other parts of what you have there other than just the seeds. Now, if the seeds are dry already, you can plant them at this time, or you can store them for planting later. Next slide, please. Okay, these two pictures are a loofah. If you look carefully at the left one, you'll see the loofah hiding behind the leaves there. And we grew a lot of these at one of the programs out in the community that I worked with. And they grew up, they grow like, they're a vining plant, obviously, from the picture. And they grow very long vines. And in fact, at this particular program that I was working at, we were growing them on an 8-foot fence, and the neighbors on the other side of the fence complained about them coming over. So that's how quickly and encouraged they were. Very, very good growers. So anyway, if you want to dry process the seeds, if you want to save the seeds, you do what's over on the right hand side. Now you may recognize loofah as sponges that you buy in the store, in cosmetic stores, department stores. They're for cleaning either your skin, because they have a nice abrasion for rough skin that you want to clear up, or for clean. I have 2 or 3 that I use for cleaning up my pots outside. Now, those seeds that you see, the little black spots on the far right of the slide, those seeds come out, are dried already because you dry the lofa before you take the seeds out because you want to get the skin off. You can always peel it, but then you're cutting into the sponge part of the plant. So you see a piece of the skin there toward the bottom of the right picture, and it's taken long enough for the seed, the skin to be ready to pull off, and for the sponge itself to dry out, that the seeds are probably dried too. I usually let seeds dry for another day or two anyway, but those seeds just shake out of it. If you grow lofa, you just shake them to get the seeds out, and then they do grow readily, but they do take up a lot of space. Next picture, please. Okay, we're switching now over to wet processing, which is fermenting seeds. Okay, a lot of the seeds that we want to save are in pulp. This would be fruits, including tomatoes. So we do wet processing. You start by removing the seeds, and this happens to be a plant that a Texas wild cherry tomato, and I had been told that it was an heirloom, so I wasn't worrying about the whole thing of getting plants that I wasn't expecting. So I removed the seeds from a ripe fruit, and then I fermented them by putting them in water. And you can see in the bottom of that jar on the right, you see little light colored dots, and those are the seeds with the pulp soaked off of them. And it took 3 or 4 days, and then I was able to drain them and lay out the seeds to dry and save them. And the ones that I planted, and I gave a lot away, but the ones that I planted did sprout, and they produced Texas wild tomatoes. Next slide, please. Okay, this is also wet processing. As you see from this picture, my fellow gardeners obeyed my instructions not to pick that particular eggplant. So I got it when it was getting quite soft, and I had an idea of how long it had been growing, so I figured the seeds were going to be ripe. So I cut the eggplant open and took out the pulp, and you see in the picture there, lower left, that the little dark areas in the pulp are the seeds. So I put it all in water, soaked it. I don't remember exactly how many days, but I know it was at least 3, 4, 5 days. It was longer than for tomatoes to get the pulp off of them. And then what I had was I strained them and put them out on a plate. Now, you don't want to leave seeds on a plate to dry out, because what will happen, and I didn't, I moved these to wax paper. What will happen if you just leave them on a plate that happens to be available when you're draining the seeds out, is that a part of the seed is maybe going to stick to the plate, and when you remove the seeds, you're going to be pulling off a part of the seed coat. And the seed coat is what protects the seeds and keeps them fresh during storage periods. So I did fairly quickly transfer these to wax paper. And again, I gave a lot of these seeds away because I don't have room to grow do a lot of gardening in my home. Next picture. Okay, I want my notes here to get caught up here with, storing seeds. You want to place packets into a plastic bag before you put them in the fridge. Now, you want to make sure that you prevent them from becoming moist until you plant them. If you're combining seeds that you purchased, like what you see down at the bottom there, they're probably already dried out, so they're probably ready to go into the plastic bag. With seeds that I save, I never put directly into a closed container or a plastic container. I put them in an envelope, in a paper envelope first, and seal it and gives them a chance to dry out. This is after I've let them dry for a few days and I think they're dry, but just in case I've misjudged and they're not still dry, I put them in a paper envelope so that they still have a chance to do some more drying if that's necessary. And then you just make sure you've labeled with the date. Even the seeds that you collected will already have a date on them, and you can check online as to how long those seeds are going to last. There are charts that say the lifespan of a certain type of seed, and you can check that out to see if something that has 2023 stamped on the back is going to still be good. Now, when you're putting your own saved seeds, you have to make sure you put a description, because as you remember from all those seeds I showed you, I would have to do some thinking to figure out which seed was which. Some of them look very much alike, and you want to make sure you know what the seed you're saving is. So you want to put the date that you're saving it and the description on it. Have the next slide. Okay, now we're moving on to dormancy. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this because it's not an issue with most seeds, but dormancy is simply the way that plants stop their seeds from germinating at a time that's unfavorable for growth. Some seeds are very, very dependent on the growing, on the temperature of the soil, the amount of light, the amount of moisture that they get. And so these seeds are more likely to be dormant, but it's not really an issue with most seeds. But you find this out by collecting information. It's on the seed packet if you're buying the seeds, or if you collected the seeds, you need to read about that particular plant. But there are some simple ways to overcome dormancy. Next slide, please. Okay, you can use a plant heating pad if one of the things that the seed needs to germinate, to begin to grow, is a heating pad, is heat. And you don't want to use the type of heating pad that we use on our solar bags because they're really quite hot. Get one that's made for plants. They're not cheap, but they're not that expensive, and they do last a long time. So you're better off using a heating pad made for plants, unless you want to figure out a way to alter, your own regular heating pad so that it's not giving off quite as much heat. Low setting doesn't work on mine. Okay, and then you can refrigerate them if the dormancy that you need to overcome is cold in order for the plant to germinate. Also, some seeds you need to plant shallowly because they need light to overcome their dormancy. Examples would be lettuce, petunias, dill. You don't want to plant these seeds too deeply at all. You want to just sprinkle a little soil or vermiculite or something on the top of them so that they get light and they're more likely to germinate. You can plant seeds deeply if they need to have darkness. You can let the soil itself make their atmosphere dark, or you can even cover the container with a cloth or newspaper to make it even darker. Examples of some of these plants would be calendula, verbena, vinca, seeds of those plants. And again, you do the research online or in one of the books in the references and know what type of dormancy you're trying to overcome. Also, scratching or filing the seed coat lets moisture be absorbed, and the germination process can begin in seeds that have very hard coats. And I'm going to, when I show a picture of seeds, I'm going to tell you my story about trying to get the Texas Mountain Laurel seed coats filed down. Some of them can be a lot of work. But anyway, with most seeds, you don't even have to do this. But if you have a hard seed coat, you need to do some scratching or filing the seed, because it's the introduction of the moisture to the inside of the seed that sets the embryo growing. So if a seed lies there for 6 months and never gets any moisture inside, it's not going to germinate and it's not going to start to grow for you. Now, for some plants with hard seed coats, it's just simply a matter of soaking them for a few days. And again, this is something you need to learn about each plant that you have. Okay, next picture. Okay, back to the beginning slide that I had. And these are some of the different plants. By the way, the one up in the upper right-hand corner is the Texas Mountain Laurel. And I will tell you to get those seeds outside of the pod they grow in. I needed a pair of pliers to crack the pod open and a pair of needle nose pliers to spread it open a little bit so that I could get the seeds out. And then I filed for probably 5 or 6 minutes with not a nail file, but the big important files that you have out in your garage that really do filing. That was, out of all the seeds that I've collected, that was the one that was the most difficult to prepare for planting. Most of the others were really quite easy. And I see that I got we've got a manual of seed saving that just flashed up on the screen, and that's very good to make a note of that, because that will help you a lot, because you're not going to learn everything that you need about every plant that you might want to save in this program. Let's go to the final slide here. Now, this is a little different from all of my other slides, but I included anyway. This is called the Global Seed Vault in Svalbard, Norway. This is built into a glacier on one of the islands, on a chain of islands off the coast of Norway. And it maintains seeds from all over the world. And the reason for that is that the people who put this together realize that seeds are absolutely essential to the survival of animals and people throughout the world. And so their intent is to, and they do, distribute plants, seeds to areas that undergo floods, prolonged droughts. They don't give them to individual people. They're allocated through the international aid organizations and some of the governments. So they value seeds so much that visitors are not allowed to tour. They have guards and they have closed circuit monitors throughout their facility there. The organizers really understand that seeds are essential for food production. We've already talked about this. Food comes directly or indirectly from the plants that we grow. We know that seeds grow the fruits, vegetables, and grains that we eat. They don't grow if we don't have seeds to grow them. And they grow grasses and grains that feed the animals, the cows, the pigs, and the chickens that are available for us. So even though we don't think a lot about seeds because they're everywhere, their availability isn't assured every place. And they certainly are something that is easy to take for granted because they are readily available for us. But for people in other parts of the world that experience frequent or long-term droughts and flooding, or other upheavals, political upheavals, social upheavals that destroy the food, or where they destroy the food and the livestock, they need more plants for next year. And if the plants die off, we've talked about how you get more seeds. You get seeds from a plant. If you don't have a plant, you don't get seeds for the following year. And this can lead to malnutrition or an extreme starvation. And there are, fortunately, international organizations that try to ameliorate some of these issues. And the Global Seed Vault is one of them that will make seeds available, but only at a time, of course, when the people are able to grow them again. So the final, next slide. Resources. John, I don't know if people will have a copy of these, if you get a copy of this to people.
We've been putting
Okay.
a lot of these in the chat, and also, of course, this presentation will be available online. You can always pause
Okay.
it
Got it.
and make notes. So this will stay
Yeah.
there. The
Yeah.
slide presentation will
Yeah.
be there. Yes.
These are just a few of the books, the resources that are available on seed collection and propagation in general. You can also check online, if you want to know what to do about a calendula seed, does it have dormancy or not? Google, does it calendula seed? How do you prepare a calendula seed for planting or something like that? And we all know that. I mean, that's a real advantage that we have these days. There's an endless source of information for us. The final slide. Thank you for supporting Harris County Master Gardeners. Do we have Master Gardeners available to answer questions?
Yes, as a matter of fact,
Okay, great.
they have been answering questions as we've been
Oh,
going
already?
along.
Okay,
And I
perfect.
will. I'm going to relay some of those to you because we had some really good questions and a lot of things we had to talk about. So we'll bring this back up. But let's go ahead and let's get into.
I do appreciate the other Master Gardeners. I mean, we couldn't do this without them.
Oh,
answering those.
absolutely.
First of all, I don't have all the answers, and secondly, I can't begin to have time to answer all of them. So go ahead.
Well, special thanks.
Try me out on a few.
Thank you to Lisa, Joanne, and Chevy, and anyway, all of the Master Gardeners. Okay, let's get into some questions. So Alicia wanted to know what the best or the most economical container was for seeds. Do you have a recommendation?
If you're sure they're dry, you can put them in a Ziploc bag. I use the Tupperware containers sometimes. What you want to do, the most important thing is that they be dry and that they be labeled and that you know how long these seeds are going to last if they're stored properly. Got
it. So whatever you can write on or put some tape on and keep them dry.
You want to make sure you label the individual seed packets as well as maybe the date that you're putting the whole package.
And that said, you can go low budget with just some envelopes or some Tupperware or some, HEB has those great small little, that I put salad dressing in. So
yeah, you do want to use paper though for the seeds themselves.
Okay, great.
That's just in case they're not as dry as you think they are. Because the paper would allow them to have a little more moisture soaked up if you mess up with the drying process, and then you put them in the plastic. Yeah. You could also, if you really are confident, if you have great confidence in yourself, just put them in plastic and don't bother with the paper. I don't have that much confidence.
Well, okay, right now I'm putting in a survey into the comments section. For those of you who are watching right now, please go ahead and fill out that survey either now or later on. But we'll keep going with the questions. But I just wanted to let our audience know that survey is in the comment section right now. Okay, another question. So one thing that and I knew about and I wanted to ask you about is seed libraries. You talked about different places, obviously, to exchange seeds, and I'm guessing that if you're friends with Master Gardeners, everybody's probably got a few like, hey, what do you get? Like trading baseball cards, you can be trading seeds. Mm-hmm. But are you familiar with the Harris County Public Library? There's 3 different branches that I know of right now, North Channel, Sci-Fair, and Lone Star College, where you can go and check out seeds. Obviously, you're not, bringing them back, but have you had any experience with different locations or seed libraries in the?
No, I haven't as far as getting seeds for myself because I'm in the enviable position of having lots of seeds and access to a lot of seeds. But certainly, we give out seeds at our farmers markets. We give them out at any of the events that we go to.
Well, it's good to know.
And as far as actual seed banks here, I'm not familiar with any, but I also know that places like Urban Harvest and all those, anytime you go to an event that has vegetables and fruit, you're probably going to find some packets of seeds that'll be available.
Got it. Got it. And I'm going to go ahead and while we're talking, I'm going to put a link. I think there is a link to a blog article that talks about the Harris County Public Library seed libraries. And just for our audience out there, just to know that that is something that we provide. We had another great question.
By the way, that's good to know. And I will add this to presentations for future years.
Good. I don't know why I didn't think about it until as you're talking. I'm like, wait a minute. I remembered we had something like that. Suzanne had a great question. She was, and I'm going to kind of combine her question with another one. She was wanting to know if you recommended a basic seed starting mix. And another question we had was, what is it good if you want to try doing this? Like, what's a great, easy, what would be a good starter fruit or vegetable or something to try seed saving with? Where's that?
Okay, as far as planting seeds, you want something that's going to retain a lot of moisture, and that's light. Now, sometimes I mix my own up using vermiculite, peat moss, those things. And I like coconut coir.
Okay.
The advantage to coconut coir is that it's sustainable. There's a downside to it in that it's grown in place of food crops in the countries that can grow coconuts. That's the downside to the popularity of coconut coir. But it doesn't require the almost mining that goes on to get vermiculite, the scraping of the off the soil, and apparently gases are produced and things like that. So I start with just because it's easier. I start with just a seed starting mix, not a potting mix. A potting mix might be too heavy, and then I add coconut coir to it.
Okay.
What was the other question?
Oh, well, that was it. So that was the type of mix. And did you recommend, if you're just getting in this, and you're looking for a success rate or a lot of success, what would be some easier seeds you would maybe recommend as opposed to some of the more difficult ones?
Radishes.
Okay.
Marigolds. Many of the seeds that were in my picture, because sometimes I like to go easy. Let me see. As far as vegetables go, lettuce, if you plant it properly and don't put it in too deeply. Spinach is easy. I'm trying to think of seeds that we use with the kids. We use spinach quite a bit because the seeds are large enough for them to handle. And they're not real fussy about how deep they go. There is a certain depth that you're supposed to do, but they're not real fussy.
Yeah, for some of us whose eyesight is not what it once was, it's good to have the bigger seeds.
Yeah. Well, and it's strange. I didn't know if I would get the mountain laurel seeds to sprout. I only planted a couple, and I did give them to the person she was moving from that house, and she wanted to take a sample of that tree. So I started them from seed for her because I wasn't sure how else to do it. She didn't want to be breaking off branches and stuff like that. And they did. They grew, and by the time she was ready to leave, they were plants a couple of inches high. So also the obedient plants, they reseed themselves. Tomatoes reseed themselves. So many plants do. I mean, if you don't pick up after your tomatoes and they fall on the ground, don't be surprised if you go out the next spring and there are little tomato plants coming up. So
now that actually gave me had one question. This is from me. So I noticed when you on your zucchini you wrote, do not pick this zucchini. If I write on there, do not eat this, would the birds listen to that? Will they?
Gosh,
that was the best I thought. I was like, don't pick this. I thought I'm gonna.
You could try it. I don't know how literate birds are these days, but
we had another question from Elise.
You could also, by the way, tent.
Okay, yeah, no, that's it.
If you have some plants that you really are afraid that the animals are going to get into, you can tent them with a very lightweight mesh or the freeze cloth or something like that.
I had a question from Joanne. Wanted to know if you could plant seeds from squash and pumpkins.
Yes. In fact, the yellow seeds, that actually was not a zucchini that I had the picture of with the note on it. It was a yellow squash, and they did, yeah.
Although
though, because probably the zucchini, think about what I said back when we were talking about tomatoes and oranges and lemons. Probably the seeds are in some way hybrid. So you may not get the exact same zucchini as that you took the seed out of. Because remember, there's been a pollination process, a fertilization process that has gone on that may affect the itself.
Okay. I had another question from Alicia. Wanted to know why my zinnias often come back only pink when starting from seeds that I saved. Any experience with if I guess the seed she maybe a different color than pink and then they grow pink? Is that just
It may be that pink is, I don't know. This is a guess.
Sure.
A little bit of logic too. What we said about hybrids being a mixture of different plants from genetic material from different plants. Maybe pink is a very dominant color, and so that if you get any little inkling of pink, it's like with people. Some traits are more dominant than others. Darker hair. I'm the only blonde in my family, and it's real blonde. Well, it was. It's gray now, but it was real blonde. Both my sisters have darker hair. I have lighter eyes than both of my sisters, and I'm pretty sure we all came from the same two parents. So yeah, there's variability anytime the fertilization process is involved because different genes are stronger than other genes.
Right. That's a good answer. I think that's probably. What's wrong with pink zinnias too? Nothing wrong with pink zinnias. Before I get into the last question we had, I had one little quick story. We didn't talk about eating seeds too much, and obviously a lot of people are, getting seeds to eat because they're so nutritious and helpful. I was at Phoenicia Market, and they have their large section of nuts and seeds, and I was going through and I picked out a bag. I'd never had apricot seeds before. I was like, oh, those look good. And very small, but had a warning on there that they contained arsenic. And I had no idea, but apparently the apricot seeds, like naturally occurring, is arsenic. And I didn't know if you had ever heard that or had any experience with apricot seed, the really big apricot seeds.
I have not had any experience with apricots. I've never tried to grow apricots, and but obviously you're going to pay attention to that warning.
It was a small warning label. That's what I was surprised at. I was like, I thought that would have been bigger, but they said just eat a few. They don't overdo it.
Just eat a few.
Like they weren't that tasty.
Okay. So I will say the seeds that I eat are pumpkin seeds and squash seeds, and those some mine are pretty traditional eating seeds.
And we just had a comment come in that peach pits also might be toxic as well. So just do a little like you all those great books you recommended, and do some research on the seeds you're doing just in case. And lastly, two things. You mentioned a plant heating pad. I had never actually heard of a plant heating pad. What can you describe maybe more about, like is it something you get online or?
I got mine online at that one store. It starts with an A that I order so much stuff from. I won't.
Yeah, I think we know what you're talking about.
Just put in
seed heating pad, plant heating pad.
The temperature is a little bit lower. I mean, I checked it out because I thought, now if I'm going to be buying another one, I think I paid $19 for it, and I've had it for 5 years. But
not the heating pad you used after you've been working in the garden for so long.
You have to find a way to filter out part of the heat, or you're going to touch it. I mean, maybe my heating pad is hotter than other people's heating pads, but if I touch mine after a few minutes, my hand is very, very warm. And keep in mind that the heat dries. Right. And so if you put some seeds in and you want to give them a little bit of heat to give them a boost, too much heat is going to dry out the dirt, the potting soil that they're in. It's going to dry that out. And then it's going to dry up the embryo that started to grow. And if that happens, the plant's gone. There is no plant. If you do that. And the same for roots. Roots, new roots tend to be very tender, very small. And you don't want to overheat them. And I can't tell you exactly what the right heat heat
That's all
saving.
right. That's all
But
right.
the heating pad that I purchased, you can probably buy them at plant stores too. Shop around though for prices. I often find that Amazon is
They have a
is the
good
lowest
price.
price and the availability.
If you can find one locally and support a business, that's great. But otherwise, that would be good as well. One last thing I want to bring up: you mentioned the Global Seed Vault and in Norway, and I
Mhm.
just thought that's such a great. We think about Fort Knox and all the security we're going to have around our gold and how important that is. But really, if you get down to it, if you don't have any more seeds, which one's really more valuable?
Yeah.
And are there any of these seed vaults in America? Do we have some in the
Colorado, there's one in Colorado, and my hunch is, I haven't heard this, but that the seed companies themselves probably maintain some
Oh,
seeds.
okay.
Now, I don't know if they would, be given out to the aid organizations or what,
Right.
but I'm sure there are more. I
Right.
just happen to have been very touched when I read this story about the one in Norway and what it was that motivated them and their rationale. And somehow they put it together that if you don't have plants, if you lose your plants, you're not going to have seeds to plant for the next year.
Once again, I want to put up our resources right there. Some great material from some people. More you can read on it, which is interesting. And Linda, I just want to thank you so much for such a really informative and really great presentation. Thank you so much.
It was great. Look forward to it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so speaking of coming up shows on July 16th, we do have Fall's Best Vegetable Gardens, and that's with Teresa C. Hopefully, we'll see Linda again maybe next year sometime coming back, and we can talk about now that we've got the little seeds and they've got their seedlings.
Mhm.
We'll get that.
I also like to talk about propagation in general.
There you go. We'll bring that. There you go. We already have our topic for next year. Linda, thank you so much for all of your time. And of course, everybody, thank you for listening and watching. And if you look
Yes,
in the comment section, all this will stay online so you can find the link and send it to your friends if they missed the live show. Thank you so much and have yourself a great rest of your day.
okay. Thank you. You too.